Mama, Papa has brought another woman into the mansion. Amaka blinked.
No! 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 It can't happen.
What happens when the true wife returns disguised as a maid? When her children serve as workers in their own home? When the rival slaps, mocks, and humiliates the family she doesn't recognize? And what unfolds at the party where silence ends and truth destroys pretenders? When Amaka returned, no one knew she wasn't a maid. She was the forgotten queen in disguise, but no one believed how it ended after 3 years. Stay tuned as we dive into the life twist. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and despair. For 3 long months, Amaka had lived among pale walls and blinking machines, never leaving her daughter's bedside. Grace, her last born, lay motionless, her tiny chest rising and falling with the help of tubes. Amaka's wrapper had faded, her face hollowed, but her spirit refused to collapse. She dipped a cloth in warm water, pressed it gently to Grace's forehead, and whispered, "Amaka, my sunshine, stay with me. Mummy is here." Grace's eyes fluttered open for a second. Her lips moved, forming a question weak but sharp enough to pierce Amaka's soul. "Grace, Mummy, when will we go home?" Amaka's throat tightened. Home? The word itself felt poisoned. Because only yesterday, her eldest son Chidi had entered this ward with news that shattered her world. He had walked in like a soldier carrying bad tidings, jaw tight, eyes red, fists clenched. He sat silent for a moment, before speaking in a voice that broke like glass. "Chidi, Mama, Papa has brought another woman into the mansion." Amaka blinked, her hands freezing mid-stroke as she brushed Grace's hair. "Amaka," softly. "Another woman?" Chidi nodded. His fist trembled against his knees. "Chidi?" "They call her Madame Rose. She dresses like a queen, walks around like she owns everything. Mama, she sits in your chair at the dining table. She has chased away the old maids. She is calling herself the new Madame." The air drained from Amaka's lungs. For a moment she could not speak. She thought of Richard, her husband, her companion of decades. Could he betray her like this while she fought for their child's life in a hospital bed? Tears blurred her vision. She dropped her face into her palms and muttered, "Lord, why?" But before despair could swallow her, her second daughter, Ifeoma, stepped forward. Slim, tall, her eyes burning with the fire of youth, she knelt beside her mother. "Ifeoma, Mama, don't cry. We will not let her win. You are the true wife, the true queen of that house." The twins, Nonso and Ankem, entered with bags of fruit. Their faces were grim, as though they had already tasted war. And behind them came Azine, the youngest, her small hands clinging to her Bible. For the first time since Grace fell sick, Amaka looked around and saw her children gathered, united like soldiers before a battlefield. Their eyes carried one message: "We stand with you." Amaka, hoarse but steady. "My children, if we go back, it will not be as owners. It will not be as heirs. We will go back as servants, as house workers. She must reveal herself. She must show her heart. Will you endure this shame with me?" Chidi leaned forward, his voice firm. "Chidi?" "Yes, Mama. Let her think we are nothing. We will watch. We will endure. When the truth comes, the whole world will know who she really is." Ifeoma squeezed her mother's hands. "Ifeoma, Mama, let us be her maids, her cleaners, her guards. We will taste her cruelty. We will not break." Ezine's voice trembled, but her words were sharp. "Ezine, if she slaps us, we will endure. If she insults us, we will bow. But one day, God will reveal the truth." Amaka's heart swelled with pride and sorrow all at once. She had raised warriors, not just children. "Amaka," rising, voice clear, "then it is decided. We return, not as owners, but as servants. We will test Madame Rose. We will endure her fire. And when the day comes, truth will rise like the sun." That night, while Grace slept, Amaka and her children gathered in the dim hospital waiting area. The fluorescent light flickered, throwing shadows across their faces. "Amaka, listen. Chidi, you will be the gatekeeper. Ifeoma, you will act as the housemaid. Nonso and Ankem, you will be errand boys. Ezine, you will join the laundry. As for me, I will be nothing but a cleaner. A simple maid. Chidi, hesitant. Mama and Papa, what if he speaks? What if he exposes us? Amaka's lips curved into a bitter smile. Amaka, if Richard speaks, then let him. But he knows me. He knows I endure. He will be silent and watch, just like us. Ezine clutched her Bible tightly, eyes wide. Ezine. Mama, what if she hurts you? What if she beats you? Amaka bent down, kissing her daughter's forehead gently. Amaka. Then let her beat me. Let her strike me. I have endured worse. I have endured hunger, rejection, the sight of my child fighting for breath. What is one woman's cruelty compared to that? The children sat in silence, their eyes glowing with determination. They were no longer just children. They were soldiers stepping into battle. 2 weeks later, Grace stabilized enough to remain in hospital care. Amaka tied a faded wrapper around her waist, carried a small nylon bag, and walked toward the mansion gates. Her heart thudded. Every stone of the driveway, every trimmed hedge, every rosebush whispered memories. This was her home. But today, she was no mistress. Today, she was a maid. Her children were already at their posts. Chidi stood as the new gatekeeper, cap pulled low. Ifeoma swept the compound with a broom, her movements practiced. The twins lugged buckets of water, their faces blank. Ezine bent over a pile of laundry, her hands raw from scrubbing. When the black and gold gates creaked open, Amaka stepped inside. The scent of roses hit her nose. Once it had been sweet. Now it smelled of betrayal. The guard at the corner glanced at her and muttered, "This one won't last. Madame Rose will break her." Amaka lowered her head, whispering to herself, "I am not here to run. I am not here to please. I am here to endure, for grace, for my children, for truth." And so the masquerade began. The true queen had returned, not with jewels or crowns, but with broom and bucket in hand. And behind those shining walls, Madame Rose was waiting. The mansion's gates clanged shut behind Amaka, the sound like a sentence of exile. She clutched her small nylon bag tightly, staring at the palace she once ruled. From the outside, it was still breathtaking. Towering walls, golden windows, roses blooming along the path. But to her, it was no longer home. It was a battlefield. A maid in a navy uniform approached her, eyeing her up and down with a mixture of pity and curiosity. "Maid, you're new?" Amaka, bowing slightly. "Yes, I came to work." The maid smirked, shaking her head. I hope you have a strong heart. Madame Rose doesn't like peace. Even if you wash the floor until your blood mixes with the water, she will still find fault." Before Amaka could reply, a sound pierced the air, sharp and deliberate. Da, da, da. The click of stiletto heels on marble. The maids froze. The workers stiffened. The air itself seemed to shrink back as Madame Rose appeared at the top of the staircase. She descended slowly, her silk gown sweeping the steps, her hair glistening under the chandelier like strands of gold. When she reached the bottom, her eyes fell on Amaka, cold, sharp, assessing. She walked forward, not breaking her gaze, and then, without a word, she kicked Amaka's bucket of water. The soapy water splashed across the marble, soaking Amaka's wrapper. Rose, smirking, "First rule, nobody blocks my path. Start over." The other workers kept their heads down, afraid to breathe. Amaka bent quietly, mopping the floor again. Her silence was heavy, but she refused to let her tears fall. Inside, her heart whispered, "For grace, for my children, I will endure." From the corner, Ifeoma, the maid, watched. Her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. But she said nothing. They had promised to remain silent. Later that afternoon, Rose swept into the kitchen like a storm. Chuka, the long-serving cook, was peeling yams while Ifeoma washed dishes. Amaka stood at the sink, scrubbing pots, with quiet precision. Rose snapping. I need water, room temperature, with lemon. Bring it to my room. Her eyes landed on Amaka. Rose, pointing a sharp finger. You, new one. If you mess this up, you will regret the day you were born. Amaka bowed slightly. Yes, madam. She poured the water, squeezed the lemon, and carried it upstairs on a silver tray. When she entered Rose's bedroom, she almost staggered. The room smelled of expensive perfume. Golden sheets spread across the bed, and on the pillow lay a porcelain doll with painted lips. Rose sat elegantly, scrolling through her phone. She sipped the water slowly, then sneered. Rose, you're lucky. As Amaka turned to leave, Rose added sharply, Rose, the bathroom sink has stains. I hate stains. Clean them, now. Amaka set down the tray, entered the bathroom, and bent to scrub the porcelain sink. The faint circle of a ring glared back at her. As she worked, her elbow brushed a perfume bottle. It wobbled dangerously. Her heart skipped. She caught it in time, but when she turned, Rose was already behind her, arms folded, eyes burning. Slap! The sound echoed against the marble walls. Amaka's cheek burned, but she lowered her head. Amaka, quietly. Sorry, madam. Rose, hissing. Clumsy girl. I hate clumsy people. Clean the guest room next, and iron the bed sheets, while they're still on the bed. I hate wrinkles. Amaka. Yes, madam. She left the room silently. On the staircase, she nearly collided with Richard. For the first time in months, their eyes met. Richard's sharp gaze lingered on the red mark across her cheek. His lips parted as if to speak, but he remained silent. He stepped aside, letting her pass as though she truly were a maid. Amaka's heart twisted, but she bowed her head and kept walking. That night, Amaka sat on her thin mattress in the cramped servants' quarters. The air smelled of dust and sweat. Around her, the workers gathered. Her children. Ifeoma's eyes were swollen with restrained anger. Chidi's fists were clenched. The twins whispered furiously. Izina clutched her Bible to her chest. Ifeoma, whispering. Mama, how much more of this will we endure? Today she slapped you. Tomorrow she may do worse. Amaka placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Amaka, we will endure all. Remember why we are here? Grace is still in that hospital bed. Until she rises, we will not bow to pain. Let Madame Rose test us. One day, the truth will speak. Chidi's jaw tightened. Mama, if only you would let me. Amaka, cutting in, firm. No, not a word, not a hand. Silence is our shield. The children nodded reluctantly. Their eyes burned, but they submitted to her command. That night, as sleep crept upon them, Amaka whispered a prayer only heaven could hear. Lord, let me stay, let me endure. Not for me, but for grace, for my children, for truth. The next morning, at dawn, Amaka was already in the backyard, sweeping fallen leaves. Her wrapper clung to her damp skin as the sun rose over the mansion. From the balcony above, Rose stood watching. Her lips curled. Rose, to herself. We'll see how long you last, little maid. We'll see. The mansion was a palace on the outside, but inside it pulsed with fear. Everyone knew Madame Rose's temper was like a whip. It lashed without warning. But to Amaka and her children, it was more than temper. It was torment. One afternoon, Amaka was dusting the living room. The marble floor gleamed, the glass tables sparkled. Her hand brushed too close to a vase, and it wobbled for half a second. She steadied it quickly, but Rose had already entered. Rose shouting, "Useless girl!" The slap landed so hard it echoed through the hall. Amaka staggered but bowed her head. Sorry, madam, Rose hissed, her voice sharp as a knife. Rose, do you know how much this vase costs? More than your entire life. Clumsy thing. Then, without warning, she kicked Amaka's shin with the sharp point of her heel. Amaka gasped softly, the pain shooting up her leg, but she refused to cry out. From the corridor, Ifeoma froze, her hands trembling as she carried laundry. Every instinct screamed for her to protect her mother, but she remembered Amaka's command. Silence is our shield. She lowered her head and walked away. It didn't end there. If Amaka was too slow to respond to a call, Rose would grab her by the ear and drag her across the floor like a child. If she scrubbed a floor too gently, Rose would step on her hand with her stiletto heel, twisting until her knuckles ached. One evening, Amaka served food at the dining table. The spoon clinked lightly against the plate. Rose, snapping. "What is this noise? Are you trying to poison me with your clumsy hands?" She flung the plate across the room. Rice and stew splattered across the tiles, staining the white walls. Rose, pointing at the mess. "Clean it, now, and not with a rag. Use your hands if you must." Amaka knelt, wiping the stain with a rag, her fingers trembling but her face calm. From the corner, Chidi, disguised as the gatekeeper, watched silently. His fists clenched so tightly that his nails cut into his palms. But he said nothing. His silence screamed louder than words. One morning, Rose called Amaka into her bedroom. "Rose, hold this tray." She placed a jug of water on it. "Rose, stand there until I finish my call." Amaka obeyed, holding the heavy jug. Minutes stretched into 20. Her arms trembled. Sweat trickled down her face when Rose finally ended the call. She looked at Amaka with a cruel smile. She reached out and deliberately pushed the jug to the floor. It shattered. Water spilled everywhere. Rose, shouting, "Clumsy maid, clean it!" Then she slapped Amaka so hard the sting ran down her neck. Amaka bent, picking up the shards carefully. A shard cut her finger, and blood mingled with the spilled water. She wrapped the wound in her wrapper and continued cleaning, her face expressionless. Later, in the kitchen, Chuka the cook whispered as Amaka washed the cut under the tap. Chuka shaking her head. "You are not human. Any other woman would have run barefoot by now." Amaka smiled faintly, her voice soft but steady. "Amaka, I have seen worse than pain. I have seen my child fighting for breath in a hospital bed. If I run, who will pay her bills? Who will fight for her life?" Chuka turned away, her eyes wet. She couldn't bear to watch. Days rolled by. Rose had broken stronger women with fewer slaps, fewer insults. But Amaka refused to break. Her silence was like a wall, cold, immovable, unshaken. Rose became restless. At night, as she sat before her mirror brushing her hair, she muttered to her reflection. Rose, whispering, "Why doesn't she cry? Why doesn't she beg? Why doesn't she run?" Her reflection had no answer. One Sunday morning, Rose threw a gathering for her friends. The house gleamed, the tables glittered with gold cutlery. Laughter filled the hall as rich women in lace gowns gossiped and sipped wine. Amaka and Ifioma moved quietly between them, serving drinks. Suddenly, Rose clapped her hands. Rose, smiling wickedly. "Ladies, look at this one. She's my newest maid. Watch how clumsy she is." She deliberately knocked over a glass of juice, spilling it across the rug. Rose, to Amaka, "Clean it, with your knees." The women giggled, covering their mouths with jeweled hands. Amaka knelt, wiping the juice quietly. She heard the laughter but did not lift her head. Her silence burned Rose more than any insult could. When the guests left, Rose paced the hall angrily, muttering, "She thinks she is strong. I will break her. I will break her if it's the last thing I do." That night, in the servants' quarters, the family gathered again. Nonso's voice trembled with fury. "Nonso, Mama, let us tell her. Let us show her who we are. How can you bear this humiliation?" Amaka placed her hand on his shoulder, her voice calm but firm. "Amaka, our silence is not weakness. It is a weapon." Ezina nodded, clutching her Bible. Her eyes shone with tears but also with fire. "Ezina, Mama is right. The Lord sees, the Lord will repay. We must wait." The children bowed their heads. Their hearts burned, but they chose endurance. In her golden bedroom, Rose tossed and turned on her silk sheets. She had everything: a mansion, wealth, beauty, Richard's name. But one thing she could not conquer was the silence of the new maid. It haunted her. Every time she struck Amaka, expecting tears, all she received was calm submission. It was like hitting a rock. No crack, no crumble. And somewhere in that silence, Rose began to feel fear. The day the doctor said, "She can go home." Amaka's fingers trembled around the hospital file. Grace blinked up at her mother, fragile but smiling. The kind of small smile that made pain step aside for hope. "Doctor, she'll still need follow-ups and rest, but she's stable enough. Don't crowd her." Amaka, softly, thank you, sir." Outside the ward, the children hugged quietly. They didn't shout, they didn't jump. It wasn't that sort of victory. It was the kind that made your chest ache and your knees weak with relief. Ifeoma, whispering into Grace's hair, "We're taking you home, sunshine." Grace, thin voice, "Home? To the roses?" The word roses landed like a stone. Amaka held Grace's gaze and smiled anyway. "Amaka, yes, my love, to the roses." They wrapped Grace in a soft shawl. Chidi lifted her gently, and the family moved like a unit through the corridors. The nurses smiled. Some whispered. One of them even said, "God is good." And for a moment, the world made sense again. You? 2 days earlier, Rose had found something she should never have seen. Richard had left his phone, face down, careless, on the nightstand. Rose reached for it to check the time, but a notification popped up. The banking app logo glowed. A transfer alert. Her thumb hesitated, then slid. 100,000 naira sent to Amaka. Her heart stopped. Then beat again, pounded really. A drum in a small room. Rose, to herself, "Amaka." She searched messages. There weren't many. Richard was tidy with his phone. But money says what words hide. 100,000 naira to Amaka. 50,000 naira last month, 40,000 naira before that. Rose stared at the amounts, hot rage rising like steam. "Rose," whisper, trembling. "This? Maid?" She froze. Rose, viciously, "No, never." She dropped the phone face down and walked to the mirror. She smiled at herself and bared her teeth. The smile didn't reach her eyes. From that moment, hatred grew claws. They kept it simple. "Only small celebration," Amaka insisted. "Not a parade. Just a little homecoming for Grace with juice and puff-puff and a soft song or two in the courtyard." Chidi arranged the chairs. Nonso and Nkem hung a string of paper hearts. Ifeoma spread a clean white cloth over a plastic table. Ezina tucked a tiny bouquet of hibiscus into an empty jar. Ifeoma, to Amaka, "Mama, should we let Madam know?" Amaka nodded. "Let her know. This is still her house to command, until the truth chooses its hour." Chidi went to the main door, cap low, voice steady. He reported like a servant would. "Chidi, Madame, the household wants to do a small Thanksgiving for the little girl returning from hospital." Rose, bored. "Where?" Chidi, "In the courtyard, Madame, only small refreshments." Rose, "Fine, keep it tidy, and tell the new one." She didn't say Amaka. "The new one will serve me on a separate tray. Room temperature water, lemon, no seeds." Chidi, "Yes, Madam." He closed the door gently. His jaw worked. Chidi, under his breath, "Just a little longer." They sat her on a cushion and wrapped another shawl around her shoulders. The twins positioned a small fan. Ifeoma placed a straw in her juice. Amaka stepped back and watched her children in motion, each one careful, each one gentle. They were pretending to be servants for the woman who had smashed their lives. And yet here they were, soft with their sister, tender with their mother. Amaka's throat tightened. She blinked hard. Footsteps. Da, da, da. Rose appeared at the balcony first, then descended like a queen at a small-town parade. Silk dress, hair like polished ebony, perfume speaking before her voice did. She took in the scene, white cloth, paper hearts, a tiny bouquet in a jar, and smiled with contempt. Rose, so sentimental. Her eyes landed on Grace, on the oxygen pallor that still clung to her cheeks. Rose, cool. "Try not to make noise. If the music disturbs me, I'll end it." Amaka bowed. "Yes, Madam." Rose walked past, Pretending not to know the maid's voice ran through the house like a buried wire. Richard had not yet arrived. That too had become a pattern. Before the guests, Rose called them one by one like school children. Rose, you, gate man, who told you to hang anything on my wall? Chidi, I used removable hooks, madam. No holes. I'll take them down after. Rose, to Ifeoma. Don't drag your slippers and don't stand close to my chair. You make shadows. Rose, to the twins. When I raise 2 fingers, refill my drink. Not 1, not 3. Learn to count if you want to survive here. Rose, to Ezina. Don't look at me in the eyes when I talk. Then she turned to Amaka. Rose, carry my tray to my room now, and don't spill it. If I see a seed in that lemon, I will make you regret your mother's labor. Amaka picked up the tray. Her hands were steady. Amaka, yes, madam. She crossed the courtyard. The way a woman crosses a river she has crossed 1,000 times. Careful, practiced, silent. Neighbors came, a few business friends, a couple of church women, some curious faces from the street who loved a mansion story. It was not a big crowd. It was the kind of gathering that rests lightly on a Saturday afternoon. Ah, Madam Rose, congratulations, they chorused. She arranged her smile. Yes, yes, we thank God. They didn't know who they were thanking. Phones came out. Pictures snapped. The House of Roses, someone murmured, immediately correcting. Madam Rose's house. Laughter rippled. Down the driveway, a black car slid in. The driver parked, and the back door opened. Richard stepped out in a gray suit, crisp like an apology ironed at the last minute. Murmurs. Woman in lace, to her friend. He came. Ah. So the rumors. Friend, low. Shh, watch first. Rose's eyes brightened like a candle sees a match. Rose, darling. Richard nodded. Not cold, not warm, deliberate. Richard, good afternoon. He moved through the guests, greeting each person with a small half-smile. When his gaze landed on the maid with the tray, Amaka, his eyes steadied. A beat. Then he looked away. Amaka's heart did a slow, painful turn. Grace closed her eyes, lips moving on the words. For a moment, even Rose was still. Then a glass slipped from a guest's hand. It fell, bounced once, and shattered. The courtyard stopped breathing. Rose, sharp. You, new maid, clean it, and kneel while you're doing it. A hush fell like a sheet over the gathering. Eyes darted from Rose to the maid to Richard. Amaka walked forward, knelt, and began to pick up the pieces with a rag. Her fingers were careful, steady. No tremor showed. Only the bright glint of glass and the dull ache of dignity being ground into tile. Richard watched. His jaw worked once. The vein in his neck pulsed. Chidi, standing by the gate, whispering, Mama! Amaka, without looking up, barely moving her lips. Hold. She finished, stood, bowed, and stepped back. Rose clapped twice, smiling. Efficiency, at last! The courtyard breathed again, but differently. Richard cleared his throat. No microphone. He didn't need one. His voice carried. Not because it was loud, but because it was heavy. Richard. Friends, thank you for coming to welcome Grace home. We planned this small, because we are still in a season of recovery. He paused, eyes traveling over the faces. Some curious, some delighted, some wary. He looked at Grace, and something in his face softened. Richard, before we eat, I have something to say, something I should have said long ago. Rose smiled at the crowd, hands sweeping as if to frame the moment. Rose, loud whisper. Finally. Richard turned to the workers gathered around the edges. The gate man, the young maid, the errand boys, the little laundry girl. He lifted his chin, calling them with only a look. They came forward, one by one, forming a quiet line. Richard, to the crowd. This house has seen things you cannot know. Joy and pain, faithfulness, and failure. He swallowed. Most of that failure is mine. Rose's smile faltered. Richard? He ignored her. Richard, Let me introduce my family. A pin could have fallen and declared itself. He faced the line, his voice gentled. Richard. Chidi, first son. Chidi stepped out, cap in hand. The crowd turned. A woman gasped. Someone murmured, "Gate, man?" Richard. Ifeoma, our second. Nonso, Incame, Ezine. The children stepped forward, one by one, shedding the costumes of servanthood without moving a stitch. Their faces did it for them. Their eyes did. The line rearranged itself into a family. Rose took one step back. Her heel caught on the tile, but she didn't fall. Not yet. Richard turned last to the maid with the steady hands and the quiet eyes. Richard's voice dropped. Amaka, Richard, clear. My wife, mother of my children, the woman who stood in hospitals while I forgot my vows, the woman who returned to this house as a maid to protect her children and to test the truth. I am ashamed of my silence, but today, let there be no more doubt. He faced the guests. Richard, this is madam of this house. He faced the staff. No, the family. Richard to them. I am sorry. A sound escaped Rose. Not a word, a small animal sound. She looked at the faces, at the way the puzzle suddenly formed a picture she should have seen days ago, weeks ago. The gate man's jaw like Richard's, the young maid's eyes like Amaka's. The twins, mirror images of confusion and fire. The laundry girl, gripping her Bible with a grown woman's courage. Rose, hoarse, No, you can't be serious. This is a joke. Rose, turning to the guests, a laugh too bright. He is being dramatic. This woman, she's a maid. She, Ifeoma, quiet, firm. She is our mother. Chidi, to Rose. You called me gate man. Yes? I opened your gate every morning, but it wasn't my first time opening doors. Nonso, voice tight. You told me to count. I counted the slaps. Nkam. I counted the plates you smashed. Ezina. I counted the nights Mama didn't sleep. Rose's mouth opened and closed, fish-like, dying without water. She turned to Richard, realizing the ground had moved under her. Rose? Low? You knew. You knew, and you let this happen. Richard. I knew enough to be ashamed. I needed to see your heart. Everyone told me I was rushing. Some said I was blind with grief, with pride. So I watched. I watched you humiliate servants, my family, for sport. I watched you stain this house with pettiness and pain. The guests didn't know where to look. Some looked at Rose, makeup perfect, shoulders squared, eyes wild. Some looked at Amaka, head high now, not bowed. Some stared at Grace, small and brave in her chair, breathing the air of a courtyard that finally felt like a place for humans again. Faced the crowd again. Richard, my friends, eat if you will. Celebrate if you can. But for us, this is a day of truth. There will be changes in this house. He looked at Rose last, as if remembering an item on a list. Richard, even. You and I will speak after my daughter rests. For now, step away from this gathering. Her chin jerked. Rose, mocking. Step away? From my guests? From my home? You people think you can humiliate me? In public? Because of this? This act? Ifeoma, calm. No act, just truth. We were only quiet so you could hear yourself. The line hit like a bell. Rose turned to go, then spun back, pointing at Amaka like a curse. Rose, you think you've won? You think you're better because you knelt and washed floors? Because you pretended to be small? Amaka, steady. I didn't pretend to be small. I remembered how to serve. Rose flinched. Some truths don't need volume to break bones. Man in glasses, to his wife. I always thought that gate man looked like Richard. Wife, shh, you and your mouth. Churchwoman, to Amaka, blinking. Madam, I'm sorry, we didn't know. Amaka nodded once. Now you do. Ezina dragged her chair closer to Grace and held her hand. The twins stood on either side of their mother, tall and silent. Ifeoma wiped a corner of the table that didn't need wiping. Chidi took 2 steps forward, placing himself between Rose and the family without looking like he had. It was instinct. It was also a line drawn. Richard gestured to the driver. A quiet conference. The driver nodded and slipped away, returning with a small blanket which he draped carefully over Grace's knees. The gesture said more than speeches. Richard, to the guests, eat. We will send plates. Forgive the adjustments. Rose's voice through the door. Richard, open this door. You will not disrespect me like this. Not here, not now. No one moved. Rose, louder. Do you hear me? I said, open this. Silence from inside. Not defiance, decision. Amaka, call her in. He nodded and went to the door. He unlocked it. He didn't open it wide. Richard, through the gap. Rose, we will speak now. Her answer came fast, like a stone. Rose, good. She stepped in. The door closed behind her with a sound that wasn't loud, but it felt like a gavel. The room was heavy when Rose stepped in. Her perfume trailed first, sharp and sweet, but her eyes gave her away. They darted, wild, searching for an anchor that wasn't there. Richard stood tall, but not proud. He looked at her with the kind of silence that judges. Behind him, Amaka stood steady, her children flanking her like sentinels. Grace slept in the next room, shielded from the storm. For once, Rose did not march. She walked carefully, her heels clicking softer than usual. Rose, voice trembling. Richard, this has gone too far. You humiliated me in front of people who respect me. You've ruined my name. Richard, quiet, firm. No, Rose, you ruined your own name. She flinched. Her eyes shifted to Amaka. Rose, pleading. And you set me up. You pretended to be a maid just to shame me. Why? What kind of woman does that? Amaka's voice was calm, but her words were blades. Amaka. A woman who needed to see the truth. A woman who wanted the world to see it too. Did you not strike me when you thought I was nothing? Did you not call my children useless when you believed they were servants? You revealed yourself, Rose. I only gave you the mirror. Rose swallowed hard. Her mask was crumbling. Rose, whispering, I didn't know. I thought you were just staff. Richard, cutting her off. And that excuses cruelty? Does a servant not deserve respect? Were they not human in your eyes? If you cannot honor the least, you cannot sit among the great. Rose's lip trembled. For the first time, her eyes glistened. Rose, crying now, Richard, please, I can change. I will be better. Forgive me. Let me stay. Don't throw me out. She stepped closer, reaching for his arm. He stepped back. The rejection was sharper than a slap. Richard, cold. You don't love me. You never did. You loved the mansion, the power, the title. If you loved me, you would have loved what I loved. My family. Rose turned desperately to the children. Rose, Chidi, Ifeoma. You saw me at my worst, yes, but I can change. Give me one chance. Just one. Chidi's jaw clenched. He shook his head. Chidi, you slapped my mother for dust that wasn't there. You mocked my sister for shadows. You broke plates and told us to count the pieces. We counted, and we are finished counting. Ifeoma stepped forward, her voice soft but deadly. Ifeoma, we gave you silence. That was mercy. We give you truth now. That is justice. The twins stood side by side, arms crossed. Nonso, you told me to count drinks. And Kem, I counted the days until you would be exposed. Ezine clutched her Bible to her chest. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but her voice was steady. Ezine, you told me not to look into your eyes. Today I look and I see regret. But regret is not repentance. Repentance is turning away. You cannot stay here. Rose broke. Her knees hit the marble. Her sobs filled the room, raw, animal, shattering the last of her pride. Rose, sobbing. Please, please. I'm sorry. Don't send me away. I'll die out there. Please forgive me. Amaka stepped closer. She looked down at the woman who had tormented her, who had slapped her, mocked her, humiliated her. Her eyes softened for a moment, not in pity, but in recognition. Amaka, forgiveness is not the same as restoration. I forgive you, Rose, but you cannot stay. My family will not suffer you again. Rose looked up, stunned. You forgive me? But you still turn me away? Amaka, yes, because forgiveness releases me, but judgment is still yours to bear. Richard's voice cut through like thunder. Richard, you came into this house and sowed cruelty. Now you will reap loneliness. Do not mistake silence for weakness, Rose. We saw, God saw, it is finished. 2 guards entered quietly at his signal. They didn't drag her. They didn't shout. They simply stood, waiting. Rose rose shakily to her feet, mascara streaking her cheeks. She looked around the room one last time, at Richard, unmoved, at Amaka, resolute, at the children, unbroken. Her voice was hoarse. Rose, one day, you'll regret this. Amaka shook her head. Amaka, no! We regretted you long enough. Now we are free. With that, Rose turned, her heels clicking unevenly. The guards followed. The door closed. Silence. Not the heavy silence of fear. The clean silence of peace returning. Richard sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The children gathered near Amaka, forming a wall of warmth around her. She drew a long breath, then whispered, as if to herself but loud enough for them all. Amaka, the thorn has left the roses. Let us heal. In the weeks that followed, the mansion changed. It no longer reeked of perfume and fear, but of food cooking, laughter echoing, and Grace's soft giggles as she regained her strength. Amaka no longer swept the marble floors. Others did that now. But sometimes, she still picked up a broom, not as a servant, but as a lesson. The greatest in the house is the one who serves. Richard, humbled, spent his days repairing what silence had broken. He knew forgiveness would take time, but he was willing to wait. For the first time in years, he truly saw his wife and children. And Rose? She vanished from society, swallowed by the shadow of her own choices. No one envied her wealth, because wealth had slipped from her fingers. She had once held roses, but she chose thorns. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Rose sowed cruelty and reaped loneliness. Matthew 5:10. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Amaka endured persecution with patience, and in the end, her truth was her crown. If you were in Amaka's shoes, betrayed, humiliated, yet holding power to expose your enemy, would you have chosen silence and endurance as she did, or would you have fought back openly from the beginning? Leave your comment. Subscribe to this channel for more lessons like this. God bless you.